All right, guys, welcome back. This is Two Catholic Dudes. We have made it to episode number 7. This is part 2 of our episode on retreats and how to make them awesome. My name is Ryan Klaus.
My name is Danny Cleary.
And you know it. We are not priests. We are not theologians. We are just two Catholic dudes, and we are talking about our faith.
Right on. So, you know, before we dive right back into the kind of the meat of this episode, we have gotten ourselves into some funny antics on retreats, you and me. You know,
too many to remember, really.
Too many to remember, really. But over the years, a couple of them have just come to mind recently. And I figured we could start off chatting about that.
Yeah. The one that came to my mind was most churches on retreats, they do like some sort of blindfolded skit. What would you call it?
Just activity
or experience.
And so the one I think I know what you're talking about. The one that we did on that I do on my particular retreat, it's more based around the Passion of Christ, where they're blindfolded and they kind of hear it and go through it in a different way. And
this is like the pinnacle of the retreat.
Oh, it's the big activity.
This is the most serious.
It has to be taken serious. Yeah. It's the Passion. But
you guys are like, how could something so funny happen?
Yeah, we're like leading up. This is the most serious thing, but this is our funny story. And so here, let me tell this, because I was very short-handed on a retreat one year with people, because I have a big production with this activity to make it really authentic and make it really cool for the teens and make it a really intense experience.
Yeah, you usually have like 20 peer
at
leaders
least.
Or something like that.
Yeah, to make it all happen. So one year I was short-handed. I think somebody got sick or whatever. And so at the end of it was, like I said, it's based on the Passion. So at the end of this Passion activity, there's lines and scripts that you have to read where multiple people were needed at the top, and
I've been at the top.
Ryan's my top commander,
top of the hill for years and years and years, and I usually direct a bunch of different kids.
Right,
I have one kid be the criminal one, another kid be criminal 2. There's a couple different narrators. I take turns.
Right.
I help pretend to hammer them onto the crosses. There's the high priest or the chief priest.
Yeah.
I've been all the different
parts. There's a bunch of different parts.
Yeah.
So we're at this year and we're very short-staffed.
Very short-staffed.
And I'm like, oh no. What are we going to do?
I go,
and Ryan's
not
like,
a problem.
Yeah, well, I'll handle it. So at one point, Ryan was doing 3 different parts, but
I don't like. I like to have a 4D experience for these kids because they're blindfolded, so they can't see what's going on. But I don't like to just read every part from the same position and in the same voice. They're like, "Oh, that's just Ryan. That's the guy that's been singing all weekend." So I put on different voices and I run around them. So like the criminals would be on the right and left of them. The chief priest would probably be in the front of them. So I go out in front of them and I'm like,
say these lines.
What's the first line? You saved others and you cannot even save yourself. And then I run over quietly as possible. And then I go to their left and I go like, I go, quiet.
But you have to set the scene here is I'm like down a little ways. And I know Ryan's going to do all the voices. And I'm thinking like, he's just going to read them. It's fine. And so I'm watching him and he starts on one side and then he has to do this like penguin shuffle because there's like gravel on the ground. He doesn't want to sound like gravel rustling around. So he's like tiptoeing around to the other side so he can do this other line. And I was like, oh my gosh.
And like,
and of course, then the other people around you are laughing. And
I tell them, I was like, hey, they can't see what's going on. So as long as the audio is as professional as possible, we're going to give them the experience. So, it looks super silly and funny to us. But again, these kids, it worked. These kids had a really emotional experience.
It was super funny.
It was really funny to watch.
Yeah, and then the latest, I think one of our latest antics that we, it wasn't even really an antic. It was just something, it was like, it's almost kind of embarrassing.
Sure.
So we went on a leadership retreat. We go on one every year. We talk about it all the time. We go on the SAW retreat, and then there's a junior high one as well that we go on called Camp Big Deal. And we were at this new awesome location. It was like at a boarding school, tons of rooms and available stuff. And the director was like, okay, guys, like, There's room for everyone to have their own room for the first time in years. Like, you don't have to share. Everyone can have all the adults can have their own room. And Ryan,
we're like, can we share?
Can we be this? Can we be roommates? Is there one with 2 beds? And they're like,
why?
Well, yeah. And I don't know. I feel like we have each other's support.
Yeah.
And honestly, we'll talk about it later, but like on this retreat, it worked out that we were together because we needed it. We needed each other's support for a lot of stuff on the retreat.
We did.
So, but everyone was giving us a hard time the whole weekend. They're like, oh, well, these roommates over here.
We talked about it in our other podcast, friendship and community.
Yeah.
You know, it's 3 days or 3 or 4 nights that we're sleeping over, and it's just time to grow and bond together.
We've been rooming together on retreats for like 5 years now.
Yeah, it would feel weird otherwise.
So if you want to book us for your retreat to come help out, we only need one room.
1 room.
We got it.
2 beds though,
2 beds, please. Ryan doesn't want to have to sleep on the floor. So that was super funny. And yeah. So, but anyway, so let's dive into what we're going to talk about today, because we want to help people that are listening to, see what it takes to make a really great retreat, or just, and some of these tips and stuff don't just go for retreats; they go for overall activities, things that you're doing with your faith, just trying to help people connect.
We've already talked about preparation
and culture.
We talked about culture. Those are 2 things that are for the retreat, but that's for your entire youth ministry as well. It's for whatever you're working on. Whatever you're working on. Make sure that your culture is right and that you prepare and that you set the tone.
So let's dive into your expertise a little bit, because you've done, like I said, we have very different perspectives on retreats, because you've kind of come in as a talent and as music, whereas I've mostly just done directing and leading the retreat.
Sure.
So tell me about your approach for music on retreats. I know that mostly your experience is in high school leadership retreats or high school retreats. So tell me about what goes into that when you're preparing and stuff.
Yeah, my approach now is much different than when I first got asked to do a retreat 10 years ago or so. Mm-hmm. I had no idea what I was doing. I was still growing as a musician, but mostly growing as a follower of Christ, a person of faith, growing in my theology, and having any clue on what would make a good musical experience on a retreat. So I came in with a couple of friends, and we played like all secular songs that didn't even have anything to do. Like, sometimes you can take a secular song that has some sort of double meaning. Like these were not those songs. It was nonsense. The kids,
they're like, cool.
They're
thanks.
like, cool.
Thanks for the show.
Thanks for your concert. And then as we thankfully we kept getting asked back, and we started to understand what made a good musical experience, and we started changing those secular songs to appropriate Christian or Catholic songs, and it evolved. And thankfully, again, we kept getting asked back. We got the opportunity to grow, but now my what I aim to do when I go play music at a retreat is, depending on what the day is called for, but usually it goes like this. Like, there's just praise and worship in the morning. There's probably praise and worship in the evening. There's often adoration, and those are going to be much different types of music that you play. So in the morning, we want to get them pumped up. We want to get them excited. We want to get them passionate about what's going to happen for the day. So I usually just have mostly upbeat songs, all Christian songs, Catholic songs. This is the opportunity that you can do Christian songs, because for me, I play a lot of Mass every single week, and those are strictly Catholic songs. Well,
let me just to interrupt on that. With how important is it for, like, when you're talking about those upbeat songs that kind of gets the kids engaged, how important is it to have songs where they can be engaged? Because, like, obviously the struggle I think sometimes is, when does it, like, it's not a concert, it's worship, right?
Exactly, and that was tough for me because I've always been concert-minded, of like
performance.
Yeah. People just chilling and watching and just being like, wow, that sounds good, that's great. Mm-hmm. But like, you want to get these kids engaged.
Right.
So at minimum, I like to have lyrics behind me so they can sing along, and they can start to, sometimes it's hard to hear what I'm singing, but now they can see it visually.
Oh, yeah. They feel more confident if they know the words.
Right. But then you can take it to the next level, and you can start, a lot of songs already have built-in hand motions, like Trading My Sorrows. Everybody knows Trading My Sorrows. All the yes, Lord stuff. We talked about this in the last podcast, but I've played that song 3 million times, and I'm over it. But a lot of kids, it might be their first time, or they're still hyped about it. So I still do it, and kids are still hyped.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But I find creative ways to take other songs, new songs that don't have hand motions, and we create them. Again, this is high school, middle school. They still dig it. Even college kids, they dig it. If you can sell it as an artist, if you're excited about it, they'll be excited about it. Right. So I create things for them to do. One thing that I like to do is, I haven't done it in a bit, but I'm going to try to get back on it, is create secular songs, but then change the words. I call them Catholic parody songs.
Yep.
So I would take, for probably the most popular one I did was Shut Up and Dance.
Yeah, Stand Up and Follow. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. So we changed it to Stand Up and Follow Me. And so the kids know these songs, and they're popular rock songs or pop songs, but now all of a sudden there's a twist on it, and it's Catholic words. So anyways, all different engaging ways to get them hyped up in the morning, to get them ready to go for their day. I usually throw in one slow song. That's a good format, is like 3 or 4 fast songs, one slow song, and then end on a fast song. And then, you save all your big emotional songs for adoration or some sort of
prayerful times.
The more prayerful times that you have. Going from my original just secular songs 10, 15 years ago.
Watch me play. Yeah.
To where I am now is a complete transformation. But it's taken a lot of time and a lot of growth to get me to that point.
Absolutely, because I've watched on retreat the different things where music can be a really engaging portion of the retreat and really be something that touches people. And helps them with that encounter that we've been talking about.
Music speaks to people in ways often that words can't.
Yeah, even if it's just them getting up there and being silly or whatever, but even when you, I've noticed in particular, like just on a few of the retreats we've been on, it hasn't really been Ryan Klouse, but you've involved the other leaders that are musicians and even teens that are on the retreat to come up and share their voice in the music, and it's kind of become going back to what we talked about, a community experience on this retreat, but still geared towards the worship of with the music.
Exactly. And I think it helps break down walls. And that's an important thing, because a lot of these kids come up and maybe they're not best friends with the people in their groups, or they kind of know people through the confirmation process, but they're not super close. But kind of making them be silly and showing them that I can be silly up there, and that all the leaders, we're joining together and we're all being silly together. Right. It breaks down those barriers, and they feel that this is a safe space that we can continue on this retreat together.
Well, something that it kind of goes, it's along the same line, but it's also funny, and it's something that I always thought I commend you for, is there's that goofy, what is it called? Father Abraham song.
Yeah.
Remember that? And you always make me get up and dance around. But I remember the first time you were going to do it at a high school retreat, everyone was like, no, you can't. Like, that's a little kid song. You can't do it. And you were like, yeah, I'm doing it. Like, let's see what happens. And it ended up being like so awesome. And like, they were like, oh, this is wild. And they went, the teens went crazy.
Exactly.
And it ended up being so fun. And like you said, it opened up that comfortability. Because then I think like right after you did like Lord I Need You, and then they were willing to sing and engage and worship Christ.
You flip in that moment.
But I was always like, heck yeah, Ryan, like way to stick to your guns and be like, no, I want to try this and let's see what happens, and it ended up being awesome.
Yeah, and that shows strong leadership. If you can sell being silly, the kids will follow suit. If you are if you can flip and do Lord I Need You and be super serious, the kids will flip with you. Right. But if you're wishy-washy about anything, the kids aren't going to buy it.
Yeah. They have to believe you believe what you're saying.
Exactly.
And if we're up there being ministers, we should believe what we're saying.
Exactly.
And what we're doing. Oh yeah. Awesome. So the other thing that I want to talk about, this goes with both music and something I know that you and I both are big sticklers on, is creating an environment on a retreat. And not just on a retreat. I mean, I think it comes with youth nights, with mass, with whatever. Creating an environment that is engaging and setting the tone for what you're trying to do is super important. I know, like, if you have, we talked about the guitar thing earlier, in the last part one, but if you do have the means to do it, like, put some money and some effort into your ambiance, your lighting, your
The lighting goes a long way.
Your music, your whatever, like making it feel like a big
like
deal.
a sacred space. You're entering into a sacred space or an activity space. If you have multiple rooms, set up the rooms and designate certain spaces. If it's just one main room, which a lot of retreats do, maybe quadrant off areas, or just however you can facilitate to create an atmosphere for these kids.
And that was the word I was looking for, an atmosphere. Sure. Yeah. And here's the thing is, I know that like a lot of the times, like for me, my lighting setup is pretty extravagant. And it's really only used for like on my weekend retreat, it's only used like, I don't know, maybe a total of 5 hours of the 48-hour retreat.
Right, because it's, you can only use it at nighttime.
Yeah. But there's so many times I think, and I've talked to people be like, I'm not bringing all that stuff up to set up. Like it'll be fine. And I always think like, man, like it makes a huge difference the way that you set things up and the ambiance and environment that you create. Like, so yeah, it's a pain in the butt to drag those things up there and set them up when they're only going to be used for, 25%, but put in that effort because it makes a big difference.
Right. Bring up little votives, little candles that you can set up, tablecloths or linens to set over. Like, again, a lot of these
presentation is important.
A lot of these retreat centers are just like a bare room with nothing on the walls, and it's your job to set that room up to suit your needs.
Absolutely. And even it's if you create the environment that you want, it'll help the teens to kind of get them in the space that you want them to be in. If you have a nice mood lit room and you have your candles and maybe you have an altar cloth on the table or whatever, and you invite them in, when they come in, they're not going to be chattering and going crazy and goofing off because the room is now different. And that's the other thing is make the room different for depending on the activities that you're doing. Sometimes on retreat, we are stuck in the same room the whole time. But work in a way, even if it's subtle little ways, to make it different when the activity changes. Because the last thing you want is like to have it be battle of the sexes and then adoration's in the same room and they don't know the difference. So
yeah, so like, and then that comes down to planning. So maybe you put a break in where they go out and have a snack. They go outside, they're eating. In that time, you completely transform the room for the next activity, and then they come back. And when this is the next thing is setting the tone. So when these kids come back into the room, maybe they're all riled up from eating or whatever, but you have to go outside and say, all right, everyone, we're going back into the room to do X or Y, but you have to intro that in the right way. So if you're going to come into a prayer activity, they're not going to come running in, screaming and yelling, so that you let them know they're going to come in a prayerful mood and mindset.
Something that I didn't do for a long time, and now I literally put it in my schedule, is transitional intros on your retreat. When you're changing activities or moving into a different activity, have somebody that can intro and transition the activity. Don't just be like, okay, come on in, guys, and now, all right, we're going to do prayer, so everyone just kind of get ready for that.
Yeah, I've seen it before, and I think the biggest, like, adoration should be one of the pinnacle moments, unless you have mass, one of the pinnacle moments at the retreat, and I've seen a lot of people just be like, all right, guys, we're going to come in and we're going to do adoration.
So Jesus will be here in a minute, so just kind of
ready, set, go.
Make a way for him.
And everyone's like, half the kids are like, what's adoration? I have no idea. And the other kids are like, oh, well, this doesn't seem that important. And then, the opportunity for the biggest moment of the retreat is now completely ruined. Even if you set up the room and the music is phenomenal and, all the other things are great, if you didn't intro that right, game over. Game over.
Absolutely. And that's where it comes back to what we were talking about in the last episode is don't be afraid to share your faith. You know what adoration is if you're leading this Catholic retreat. So share your thoughts and love for it. Then the teens will understand and know what's going on, or at least start to.
Let's talk about adoration. Let's talk, because we were talking about music, what makes a great praise and worship session, and what makes music great at adoration. Now, I mentioned this briefly before, but music, especially when it's a prayerful moment at Mass or adoration or some sort of prayer service, is not about me.
Right.
Music is not about my band. Music is not about my talents. It's not about my voice. It's not about any of that. It's about elevating God in that moment in adoration.
Absolutely.
It's about bringing the kids closer to Christ and using music as the medium to do so.
Right.
So
it's just an avenue for that encounter we've been talking about.
Say we have an hour time slot for adoration. That does not mean it's an hour of music. Even though maybe I have an hour's worth of phenomenal songs that will help bring kids so close and help them move in that moment. It's okay. We can play those songs another time. What I like to do is, as they're coming in, play a song. And I actually have these backing tracks that have sort of like just sort of meditative tones that kind of play throughout, just really subtly. But then I'll just let silence just kind of sit for a few minutes. Right. And then move into a next song. I'll do like bits of songs. I'll transition from one to the next, and then I'll have more silence. And say I had like 3 more songs planned, and they're like, we're going to wrap it. I go, that's fine. We're done. You know?
Right, because it goes back to, it's not a show.
It's not a show.
You're just providing that ambiance and that avenue to help these teens worship and adore.
But as the musician too, I try to plan. So I basically have like 15 songs that I can play at any given moment, and I try to like gauge on how the room is in any given moment, and I'll be like, you know what, this song I was gonna do, but I'm gonna move past that because I need to play this song right now. And it go ahead.
This just came into my brain. I know we're talking about retreats and stuff like that, but like I've always thought that like I look at, especially like at Holy Cross, Holy Thursday is the big day for adoration, and I always feel like it could be done in such a really like in such a cool, like we're talking about this is not just for retreats. And I've always wondered like how cool would it be to like expose maybe people that have never been on a youth retreat or things like that, like to this form of adoration and prayer, you know, like where they can adore and be with God in that moment of you know, I don't know, it's just something that I've always thought about.
That's a great idea. Comment in if your church does something like that.
Yeah, I know a lot of churches that do like processions and stuff, and leave out the monstrance and things like that. But like with
music and.
But I'm talking about like schedule it out to like make it a time where like, guys, we're gonna have live praise and worship music, the Blessed Sacrament out for everyone to see. You set up nice lighting and you make it like a really beautiful experience for people to come and adore Christ in that holy day of Holy Thursday. Which was a lot of the time the only time some people even go to adoration. You know, like, right. Just it came into my head right now when we were talking about adoration on retreats and stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna get into this in our Holy Week talk, but make those days super powerful, because a lot of those people, that's the only time they go to church, or maybe the only time they go to adoration.
Right, and that goes for the same with these retreats. That might be the only time this teen even ever goes to adoration, and you want to, hopefully, by this incredible experience, they realize how important that adoration is.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so to go back to that, it's about your setup and your ambiance and what you're creating, and creating an environment that helps the teens to, or whoever, I keep saying teens because that's my MO, but whoever's on your retreat, you're creating the best environment for them to encounter Christ. Something that I really am passionate about, that I want to touch on, is a lot of times though, people make the retreat in their program the biggest thing. And you know what? It is the biggest thing a lot of the times. You put in the most work to your retreat.
Well, I mean, like confirmation,
obviously, but in their preparation,
sure,
the retreat is this big, huge thing, and they go away for the weekend, and it's this, oh, it changed my life, and hooray, and it's great. But I think a lot of times, like, people don't capitalize on that, or they make it like, oh, like the retreat is done, like thank goodness, and then like we can kind of like check out.
We just coast. We're all like senioritis at this point.
Yeah, cruise control.
Yep.
And I think that like the retreat is great and the retreat is awesome, but the retreat is one weekend. And I feel like now I'm belittling, the whole episode is talking about how important the retreats. And like, yes, amen, the retreats are important and they're awesome and they're great avenues to encounter Christ, but they are just 1 week or one weekend.
Can I touch on, before you continue on that, can I touch on the full weekend experience?
Mm-hmm.
your retreat, they get up there pretty early Friday. The
3 or 4.
Kids got to go to school, but then you stay for a good chunk of Sunday, and then it ends at Mass at like a 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock Mass on Sunday.
I am a huge advocate for ending with Mass altogether.
I think that's huge.
I know there's been a lot of I've been on a couple of retreats where like Sunday was just kind of get picked up.
Right, and that's a waste of a day. Then can you really say it's a full weekend at that point? No, you have one full day.
Yeah.
And a evening experience on Friday.
I just think like if you're gonna do this whole retreat experience and like trying to help these, help people's faith and whatever else, you gotta end with Mass. The holy Mass. I think that it's so important.
Right.
And we do it. My program is they come back from the retreat and like their families are all waiting for them in the church, and they get to process in, and it's. The Mass is kind of like the beginning before Mass begins is kind of all about them and welcoming them back and welcome the community there, welcoming them back as these maybe changed souls for God. And then again, we get to shift that focus right back to Jesus for that Mass. And it's really cool.
It's beautiful. And then at that point, you've used the entire weekend, and yes, you have made it a full, beautiful.
Yeah, it's a 3-day experience.
It's a 3-day experience.
Well, it's a 4-day experience for me because we do a follow-up the next day.
And so that goes into what you're talking about is don't finish on Sunday and be like, all right, we're done. I'm taking a 3-week vacation.
You got to follow up.
Yeah.
Because you can't make the retreat ultimate. Because what's ultimate is Jesus. Jesus is ultimate in them having that love for Christ in their life always.
And if you do take a break, if you finish the retreat and you're like, all right, kids, we're going to take this week off because we did so much at the retreat. We're going to give you a break. We're going to come back. We do have to finish our classes. But you know what that does? That sets the tone for when they get confirmed that this is a graduation, that this is the end. The retreat was kind of the end of our confirmation process, so that when you get confirmed, that's the end of getting of confirmation, and then you don't have to do anything else.
Well, you just don't want. I always tell my leadership team is don't elevate the retreat above Jesus being in your life every single day, right? Like being with God and being that close to Christ is not a one-time experience or a once-a-year experience with this retreat. Being with God and having him in your life is a choice that you make every single day. Heck yeah, is it a lot easier when you're on the retreat? Obviously. It's a heck of a lot easier. But the point of a retreat is I always tell how I see retreats, especially confirmation retreats, is kind of just a spark that starts your really like, wow, like this was awesome. Then you want to go out and make that feeling of, I want to feel like I felt on the retreat every single day. And if you just kind of check out and go, well, the retreat was awesome, and hopefully it sticks. Like, I think that as youth ministers and as people involved in youth ministry and as people that are doing retreats in any capacity, the day the retreat ends is when the hard work really begins.
All right, so we're talking about the hard work that we can put in after the retreat is done or before it begins.
Right.
And I was thinking, like, it's difficult to plan a retreat. There's a lot of planning that goes in. We talked about the planning that we have to do.
Right.
There's a lot of extra activities that happen, but we often put in so much of ourselves to that retreat. We come up, we're excited, we're on fire. The kids are on fire, the peer leaders are on fire, the adults and everything. But what if we put that energy and that love and that care and that devotion into the entire confirmation year? What kind of precedents would we set?
Or just our whole faith as in general.
Amen, brother.
Like what if we treated every single day like we wanted to help people encounter Christ the same way we do when we're on a retreat?
What if every practice that I had for Mass, I had just with like an extreme passion.
Yeah.
When I play at Mass, I'm on. Sometimes we show up to practice and we're like, all right, guys, here we go.
Oh, again. And I'm guilty of that with how many youth nights have I just kind of checked out?
Mm-hmm.
But if I treated every youth ministry like the opportunity to inspire teens the same way that it does on a retreat, like think of how awesome it would be. If we treated every Mass like it was the Easter Vigil.
Exactly.
How awesome would we, because it's the same Jesus that's there every single time. The same miracle, the same beauty of the Eucharist happens every single Mass. the same opportunity to encounter these teens and show them Jesus is there. The same opportunity to grow in music is there every practice. So I think that's what it comes down to is not making the retreat ultimate above everything else. The opportunity, is it easier on a retreat? Sure. But the opportunity to give Christ and show Christ to this world is there in all that we do. You know?
Absolutely.
But so let's talk about this real quick. What about parishes or places that don't have the means, like they don't have the money to budget a musician, or they don't have the production value or whatever?
Right. They got that $75 guitar from Costco.
Yeah. What would they do here?
Right. You have to be creative, and you have to lean on volunteers.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is don't be afraid to go out and invite people to help.
Inviting people to help is key. We talked about that on a previous episode. A lot of people don't know that they're needed.
Yeah.
Some people might
or they
forward.
want an invitation.
They want an invitation, right? So go out and find a musician. I was a volunteer for the first many years on retreats. And I wasn't great, but I got better. I could have used a little bit more molding. I didn't really have much guidance. So make sure you find a volunteer and then say, here's what we need you to do. Let me help shape. I'm not a musician, so I'm not going to tell you how to play your instrument, but like, here's what we're looking for. And then they can help you when you're finished. You know, here's what we liked. Here's what we can help improve on.
Absolutely. Even if it's like I need someone to take pictures on the retreat, like, or whatever. Like there's people, get out into your parishes and talk to people and invite them to use their talents to help benefit, your retreats.
There are so many talents out there in your parish. You got to find them and be creative. Maybe somebody's great at art and they can help design posters for your walls.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe somebody is a great speaker and they can come give talks. Maybe somebody is a nurse and you need a nurse for your retreat. Nurses, you got to have a nurse.
Gotta have a nurse.
But there's people that can help your retreat that will gladly volunteer, and that's going to help elevate your retreat. It's going to help your parish in general.
It helps that community.
It helps the community grow. People are going to want to come to your church. I know people come to your youth ministry from parishes all over because it's so good. And that is only going to help the church grow. That's going to help the church financially. Then you're going to start having money and you can start affording to pay either the volunteer musician that has been playing for you, or if he moved on, then you could start and you can reach out to a musician that you can purchase at that point.
Or you can purchase the candles or the lights
and everything, right?
Need. Yeah.
So step your game up with volunteers, but keep always striving to improve. Don't think that what you have right now is perfect. It might be great, but you can always strive for something better. So keep reaching for improvement, for growth. We talked about that in a previous episode. Never settle. And your retreat, your confirmation program, your church in general, you as a person is going to keep elevating and improving. And
on that note of improving is every retreat I do an evaluation where I have the teens that I fill out. Did what worked and what didn't, or what did you like and what did you not like? And I take them very seriously because I want to put on the best retreat I can, because I want more people to love God the way that I do, and the way that I know that there's that people do, and the way that He's calling us to love Him. So take your confirmation retreat seriously. Put hard work into it. Yeah. We talked about a lot of things in these 2 episodes, but you got to prepare. Let's run through these topics. We talked about preparation. We talked about culture. Environment. Music. Setting the tone. Transitioning. And there's so many things.
I mean, these are just a handful of things that we came up with on the top of our heads right now.
Yeah.
We could go on for 6 more episodes probably.
At least, yeah.
I don't know if you want to hear more, you can feel free to book the 2 of us. We would gladly come to your church to help lead a retreat with you, or just to come for a day and help discuss how you can improve your particular parish's ministry, your confirmation program.
We can help train peer leaders, train teams to help do retreats, things like that, whatever is needed. Or if you have questions about retreat or more in-depth stuff, shoot us an email. We would love to get back to you and further discuss and help out.
We can come lead music and lead talks on your specific retreats, or just your confirmation or youth nights or whatever. So again, reach out to us at twocatholicdudes@gmail.com. Again, find us on all of our social media accounts. We really, really appreciate the support. Keep spreading and sharing all of our
Yeah.
channels with your friends and family for us. That would help
Yeah.
us out incredibly.
Absolutely. And in the comments for this episode, write down something that your favorite thing that happened on a retreat. Something maybe it was really great, or even something that was super funny, or a prank that went too far.
Yeah, share. We talked about so many things, so share about pranks,
Whatever.
funny things. Share
Yeah.
what helps make your retreat great. Just keep the conversation going. We appreciate seeing those comments. We love replying back to them, and we want to keep.
And because we don't know it all. You know, we don't know everything that makes a good retreat. We're just sharing our experiences. So maybe you have a great idea for a retreat. Throw it in the comments, and somebody watching and see that and go, "Oh wow, that's a great idea." You know, there's so many ways that we can help each other.
Exactly.
So yeah.
All right. So that's a double episode right there. You got all kind of tips on how to make your retreats better, how to make them great. Let's make these confirmation experiences great for these kids, because these kids are our future for the church. We want to help them grow. We want to make them engaged in everything that they do in this
Yes.
church, and we
want
want
the
to be
church to be alive. We want the church to be alive and continue to grow and continue to be alive.
Amen.
So we have to reach out to those young people. Cool.
Fantastic. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you next time, next week. Another episode, Two Catholic Dudes. Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys.
Peace out. God bless.
Peace.